Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. We're back. I got a great show for you guys today on this Wednesday afternoon. We're going to have a little bit of fun. Before I get into that, please remember to share the stream with everybody you know on every different platform that you know. That really helps us out. All right. Like I said, we got some fun today. We're going to talk about Ty Cobb. That's not the baseball guy, but one of Trump's lawyers. Gee, I wonder what happened to him today. We'll get into that. Then we've got a return of Dr. Harold Bornstein. That is Donald Trump's former doctor that wrote the outrageous letter. Well, we have details on that letter. That's fun. We have, of course, John Kelly, angry again. Then story that I wanted to do yesterday. We've got Donald Trump on Cohen's legal bills. That's interesting. Marco Rubio on the tax cuts. He's got some interesting quotes on that. We have Millennials and the Democratic Party. What's going on there? And, of course, we have conservatives that are taking over colleges. Interesting. So we got a fun show. This'll be great. This is going to be hilarious because I haven't done a bunch of fun Trump stories in a while. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. So stick around for the next hour as we go around the nation for some of the best stories and commentary that you will find on the web. So anyway, we're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be a good time. All right. Anyway, please like and share if you haven't already. All right. So I think we're gonna just dive into it. We'll start out with the Trump lawyers. I am a little off center today, so I think we're going to fix that a little bit. I was a little too far off in one direction. To my right, but it looks like left. Don't want to be there. All right, anyway. So it looks like we have another high-profile departure from the Trump legal team. Now, the New York Times is reporting that White House attorney Ty Cobb has officially abandoned ship. He has jumped off the edge. He said, quote, "It has been an honor to serve the country in this capacity at the White House. I wish everybody well moving forward." He added at the end of that, "I am getting the fuck out of here. See you guys later." Okay, not really. He didn't say that, but look, I don't think anybody would blame him if that's exactly the way he thought. Because, man, I got to get out of here from this crazy person who doesn't listen to me. Now, look, in a recent statement, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders took time off from feeling offended that somebody dared made fun of her smoky eyeshadow. Said, quote, "For several weeks, Ty Cobb has been discussing his retirement, and last week he let Chief of Staff Kelly know that he will retire at the end of this month." So basically coming out and saying, but well, look, it wasn't really a surprise. We knew he was going anyway. And then now is when he made the announcement that he's going to leave. Okay, well, now that makes another Donald Trump lawyer that is gone. This follows, of course, John Dowd, now Ty Cobb. Look, man, the lawyers are dropping like flies. I wonder why. I wonder if that has anything to do with Donald Trump being an incredibly difficult client. Actually, I think this one does. Now, look, Cobb wanted Donald Trump to basically play nice with Mueller as he does his investigation, to cooperate fully with the investigation and not attack Robert Mueller, at least when it came to on Twitter publicly. Well, we see how well that turned out. In fact, that's one of the reasons that Ty Cobb resigned. He's like, Donald Trump, he wouldn't listen to me. And look, he was frustrated. It's being reported that he was frustrated that he kept going after Mueller. So it's like, okay, I've had enough of this stuff. Okay. Now, who's going to replace him? Well, it looks like they've already found a replacement, and this is interesting. Trump is planning to hire Emmett Flood to replace him. Now, Flood is interesting because he represented Bill Clinton during the Bill Clinton impeachment. Now, look, I don't know if this is on purpose, right? But I do think it's kind of interesting that he hired the guy that protected Bill Clinton from impeachment. I think that fact is pretty relevant, in my opinion, and I think very, very telling. Now, look, there is a possibility that I could just be reading into it too much, but it just makes me think, I mean, why would you hire somebody that has experience defending a president against impeachment if you didn't think that impeachment was possible or is coming? And look, there's been talk about that. They've been talking for months and months about impeachment. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me that a legal team decides, you know what? We're going to hire a guy that specifically handles impeachment or has handled impeachment before because of all the talk about impeachment. It could just be the Trump campaign and the Trump team hedging their bets against impeachment. I'm not exactly sure. But to me, it seems like they consider this a possibility. And so here we go. Ty Cobb is out, as is, of course, the cooperation with the Mueller investigation. As also, what else is out is Donald Trump playing nice with Mueller. So this is more of a defensive posture. I think they know something is going to happen. There's going to be some sort of more bombshells that are going to end up dropping. And so, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's going to be very interesting going forward. So I hope people bought popcorn shares because I think you're probably going to start needing them. Okay. All right. So let's move on. It's not an actual conspiracy. It's just I had to do something with Jason Bourne, except that it's Bornstein. I hope you guys get where I was coming from. Okay. Anyway, now let's move on here. Now, Donald Trump's former physician, Dr. Harold Bornstein, is now claiming that the letter that he wrote praising Trump's health was basically a lie. There was nothing factual in this letter whatsoever. Now, if you guys don't remember, this is that ridiculous letter that said some outrageously false things. For example, and this is a real quote from the letter, Donald Trump's physical strength and stamina are extraordinary. If elected, Mr. Trump, I can state unequivocally, will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. Ever, guys. Ever. The healthiest ever. Now, if you listened to those quotes and you were like, that sounds a lot like what Donald Trump would say, well, then you are absolutely right, because that is something that Donald Trump absolutely said. And look, it makes you wonder why a doctor would write this, considering that this is a guy who doesn't exercise because, well, if you're familiar with that story, because it will drain your life battery. It'll make you die faster if you exercise. That's really strange. Or, somebody who drinks a 12-pack of Diet Coke a day and eats almost exclusively fast food, how can someone like that be in excellent health? How can his physical strength and stamina be extraordinary? Extraordinary. That's preposterous. And, of course, it's because it's not true. It's not true at all. We find out that this, of course, is a massive lie. Why? It's because Dr. Harold Bornstein is actually speaking out. Now, he said, told CNN that, quote, look, man, I just wrote down what he told me. He dictated the whole letter. I didn't write that letter. I just made it up as I went along. So Dr. Bornstein is also a liar. Well, that's interesting. Now, he said Trump dictated the letter and I would tell him what he couldn't put in there. Oh, okay. So you let everything else slide. But there were some things, and this is amazing. There's some things that Donald Trump wanted to put in there that even Bornstein was like, whoa, whoa, that is going a little too far. Nobody's going to believe that. But they'll totally believe that he is the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. Yeah, okay, that's fun. I wonder what kind of outrageous lies Bornstein thought were a little too far. That's fun. Now, one more quote here from Bornstein. He said, of the letter, quote, "That's black humor. That letter, that's my sense of humor." Okay, well, I guess he knew all of that stuff was a complete joke. All right. He said, "It's like the movie Fargo. It takes the truth and moves it in a different direction." Like what direction? The direction of complete fabrications. Now, look, you might remember the last time Bornstein was talked about, when the letter obviously drew some controversy. And he's like, no, that letter, that was completely genuine. But the reason that it sounds like that is just because I was in a hurry, right? I was in a hurry. I had to jot it down real quick before I was going off to do other things, right? But in reality, no, he just dictated it. He just wrote down what Donald Trump wanted him to write down, for the most part, and then released it. Interesting. Well, now, look, why be honest now, right? Well, it turns out that something happened between then and now that made Bornstein very unhappy with President Trump. The new revelation comes hours after Bornstein told NBC News that Trump associates had raided his office back in February of 2017 in which they seized medical records on the president. He said, quote, "They must have been here for 25 or 30 minutes. It created a lot of chaos." And then he added that he felt, quote, "raped, frightened, and sad." Wow. Well, that's pretty bad. Okay. Look, what did you think was going to happen? Again, you lie for Donald Trump, and he'll make sure to do anything that he can to make sure that those lies do not see the light of day. I mean, that's who he is. That's what he does, right? That includes sending thugs to seize medical records, to make sure that they don't have any medical records available for you to show the press. Look, this story would be unbelievable if it were anyone else. But we already know so much about President Trump and what he does. We know he's a pathological liar. We know that he fakes things to make himself look good. In fact, there are tapes about him, or there are tapes of him pretending to be somebody else to try to puff up Donald Trump. Oh, no, I'm so much richer. Donald Trump is so much richer. I'm John Barron. And I think Donald Trump is like super rich. And you should give him all the loans that you can for his casinos. That's my professional opinion. And by the way, I'm totally not Trump. Come on, man. Again, he lies about his wealth and he lies about his health. He lies about everything. He is a serial liar. If you believe anything that he says, then you're a sucker of the highest magnitude. Because it's been shown over and over again that he's nothing but a con man, a snake oil salesman, and an absolute liar. So, I think that's fairly accurate. Okay. All right. So let's just take care of some garbage here. Okay. Let's move on. We have John Kelly. Alrighty. So White House Chief of Staff John Kelly is sort of back in the news, or at least he was. It's being reported that a senior administration official claimed that Kelly is now getting more frustrated at Trump as the months go by. Well, this is not a surprise. It's a familiar story. So what happened this time? Well, Kelly had allegedly told a senior national security official last month that he believes the president was becoming unhinged. And also, there's another recent story of where he apparently called Trump an idiot. That wouldn't be a surprise. Now, this official added that Kelly appeared to say it in a moment of frustration during a meeting with the Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, Joint Chiefs Chairman General Joseph Dunford, and Senior National Security Council official or other senior National Security Council officials. Now, Kelly's comment came as the officials deliberated on the future of the U.S. effort in Syria. So, look, so now he's becoming unhinged? Really? What's been happening for the last almost 2 years? I mean, come on. Look, as far as Kelly goes in these leaks and things, right? And him saying this and that and then going back and saying, oh, I didn't actually say that. Look, at this point, it's either shit or get off the pot, okay? Look, if you're going to quit because the president is unhinged or because he's an idiot, do so already. But I think I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to quit, and I don't necessarily think that right now he's going to get fired. Okay, look, here's what this whole thing is, right? All the comments coming from Kelly. I think this is a leak orchestrated by Kelly's enemies in the White House. This is Ivanka Trump and Scaramucci and everybody else who is pissed that Kelly has put up some barriers to the president. So this is what happens, right? So John Kelly, he works with a moron. I think that's fairly obvious. And he gets frustrated because he works for a moron. And every once in a while, he'll say it. He's like, oh, the guy's unhinged. He's an idiot. I work for a dumbass. What do you want? And so somebody hears about it. Somebody leaks to the press. The press talks about it. And then what happens? Pretty much nothing. Now, look, John Kelly's enemies in the White House, they think, no, this will be the leak that gets him fired. You watch. You watch. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's going to be successful. I think that Donald Trump has a lot more things to worry about. Besides, there's been a lot of stories of where John Kelly's essentially been pushed aside. There are ways that Donald Trump can get around him to do what he wants to do. And so, look, that's why I don't think nothing's going to happen in the meantime. And besides, the president has so much on his plate now, thanks to Michael Cohen. And look, if you fire another chief of staff, which he's already done, for one, who's going to replace him? Well, Donald Trump's talked about replacing him with himself, but that's just going to create more work for him, so I don't think he's going to do that. And besides, I think this would be fairly embarrassing and would lead to more negative headlines. And at this point, why would he want to kick up all the fuss in firing Kelly when he actually agrees with Kelly on a lot of different things? And besides, again, he can just sidestep the guy, as he has been doing already. Now, this is not to say that John Kelly's job is completely safe. There is no safe job in the White House, unless your name is Donald Trump. And look, that is even arguable, right? But I think for now, even with these leaks, I think John Kelly is going to stay around at least for a little while, at least until things calm down, if they ever do. So, again, I think expect more of these leaks, expect more of these offhand comments, because again, what they have in the White House is a situation where you have people that are fighting against different people for different jobs. And that's, look, it's highly factionalized. There's a lot of different competing interests inside, and that's the way that Donald Trump likes it. Because apparently the cream rises to the top. Or, in my estimation, I think the turds float to the top. But, again, that's my opinion on that one. Nonetheless, that's why, unfortunately, there's not going to be any changes. I think any more big changes inside the White House because he's so busy with so many other things. So, again, I don't expect Kelly to be out anytime soon. Maybe, maybe not. You never know with Trump's White House. Okay. All right. Let us move on, shall we? We're just going to roll through some of these stories. All right. Now, President Trump's campaign may be in a little bit of legal trouble for payments made to Michael Cohen's ongoing legal defense. Now, according to ABC News, President Trump's campaign was found to have covered some of the legal costs for Michael Cohen. Well, that's interesting, considering how Michael Cohen, of course, had recently been raided by the FBI. Now, the campaign, it's being reported, spent about $228,000 on 3 payments to a law firm, McDermott, Will, and Emery. Now, they, of course, are a law firm that represents Trump's personal attorney, and the payments were made allegedly between October and January. Now, Cohen's attorney, Stephen Ryan, is a partner at McDermott, Will, and Emery, and Ryan has represented Cohen in both the Russian election interference probe and in the case surrounding the payment to Stormy Daniels. That's, of course, $130,000 that he had made to that adult film star to try to cover up an affair that she allegedly had with Trump. Now, what's interesting is that this work is listed as legal consulting. So when they filled out the disclosure forms about this, they put, oh, it's legal consulting. I wonder if that's the same as Hannity. Oh, no, all I did was consult Michael Cohen. I didn't pay him anything. Sure. Now, sources familiar with the payments, however, told ABC that they're not related to legal consulting, that they're actually related to Cohen's legal fees in the Russia investigation. Now, consulting and legal fees for an investigation are obviously 2 very different things. Now, obviously, since they are different on what they're actually, going to be spent on, there also happen to be different when it comes to legality, right? Spending campaign money on certain legal fees happens to be illegal under FEC rules. Now, legal experts told ABC News that if the payments were made to cover legal fees in the investigation for Russian interference, then the campaign would actually not have violated finance law whatsoever. So, well, that's interesting. If it's related to the Russia investigation, then it's not illegal. Then it's perfectly fine. If it's about Stormy Daniels, well, then it might be an illegal expenditure. Now, again, that's super interesting because of what they're not telling you. So now it's curious why the campaign would actually do that. And so that's sort of the question, right? Now, this happened, of course, before Cohen was raided by the FBI. So I think, in my personal belief, that the payment was made to help him fight against the Stormy Daniels case. Now, that's a case that Trump didn't want getting out. Why? I don't understand, because his fans love him anyway. He could literally shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and his fans would say, well, he deserves it. He deserves it. Well, so there it is. So look, nonetheless, the campaign probably said, you know what, we help Cohen, then if we help Cohen, we help Trump, right? But the problem is, if he did that, then that is completely illegal to do, and that could actually end up costing the campaign a hefty fine, as this has happened before. I believe it was I'm Not a Witch, Christine O'Donnell, ended up getting fined somewhere around $25,000 for using campaign funds illegally for legal fees. So that's happened before. Now, the other possibility is that it's related to the Mueller probe. Now, in that case, it would be legal under FEC filings. So, but, that ends up bringing up some questions, right? Of, well, if this is about the Russia probe, and if the Trump campaign paid Cohen's legal fees, well, why would they do that? And that goes to the question of, well, if they did do that, then why? What does Cohen know? How much does Cohen know, and how much is it worth? Is it worth $200,000 on legal fees? And that's an interesting question, right? So if I'm understanding this right, then the campaign is in a little bit of a tough spot, because while the Tink team, which is unfortunately named, is making sure that the FBI doesn't go after or doesn't infringe upon attorney-client privilege, if there is anything found among those seized documents from Cohen that's related to the Mueller probe, then they can share that information with Mueller. Now, that happens to be problematic if you have something to hide. So, look, I don't know. We will find out more information, obviously, as time goes by, but it does raise some very interesting questions on why they would pay for this legal defense for Michael Cohen. And look, my question too is that now that he has been raided by the FBI and is supposedly cooperating with Mueller, or may have flipped on Donald Trump, or has the potential to flip, whether or not that campaign money is, or that help for legal fees is ongoing. So there's a lot of questions here involved in this, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of the answers. Okay. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We got Marco Rubio. We got the Democratic Party in trouble. And then we've got other stories. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back. Stay right here around the nation. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Run the Nation, right here, TWT Nation. So, here's the thing. I've got a few more stories, and I may get to it. I may get to them all before the end of the show. So, here's my idea. If that does happen, I'm going to take a cue from Ron Placone and basically answer any like news questions or whatever. Like send like an article or something like that to me, and I'll talk about it. So I think that'll turn out to be pretty interesting. So, and you can tweet it to me at my Twitter account at Jeff's Politics. So I will get it. So, all right. Anyway, let's move on. We got more stories here, so let's get to them. Oh, and if you haven't already, please give us a share. So that's like super important. All right. Anyway. So let's talk about the tax law. Let's get off Trump for a while. All right. So one of the promises of the Republican tax cuts is that it would supercharge the economy and lead to more jobs and higher wages, and we would have tons of growth, and we would have no deficit spending. It would magically create more revenue. Now, look, we all know that isn't true. Anybody with a functional brain understands that tax cuts don't create any of those things, right? There's actually historical proof that tax cuts for the wealthy and for corporations only lead to the rich people and corporations hoarding more money for themselves. And now we have a Republican senator that's basically admitting that. Now, this is Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who in an interview with The Economist said that the new tax law hasn't been the boon to the American workers that his party promised it would be. No shit, Marco. No shit. He said, and I love this, there's still a lot of thinking on the right, which you're part of, that if big corporations are happy, they're going to take the money they're saving and reinvest it in American workers. In fact, they bought back shares. A few gave out bonuses. There's no evidence whatsoever that the money's been massively poured back into the American worker. Well, no shit. No shit, Marco. Congratulations. You have just told the truth at a time where it doesn't matter whatsoever. They already passed the tax law. They already passed the tax cuts. The donors are happy. The Republican politicians are happy because it's going to get more donations. So, congratulations. What have you done? There's literally nothing that you can do about it. At this point, we are stuck with this piece of crap legislation. Again, congratulations. Look, his statements are true, yes, but it's also incredibly hypocritical for him to actually say this stuff, as if it's some sort of surprise. Look, not only did he vote for this piece of crap, some of the ideas that were actually in the law were also his. Again, he wanted to cut the corporate tax rate. In fact, back in 2015, Rubio and Senator Mike Lee both worked on a proposal that would have cut the corporate tax rate to 25%. Now, that's still an enormous cut, but not quite as big as what he eventually voted for, which is to take the tax rate for corporations down from 35% to 21%. And look, he's also previously praised Trump on the same tax bill. He said, in defending this, quote, "Work isn't just about money, it's about the dignity that comes with work." When it came to, of course, the fact that this will create jobs and it will get people off of welfare programs, and that's what we got to do to stimulate the economy and create good jobs. Again, well, that doesn't happen that didn't happen, I should say, because there's no incentive for corporations to create jobs when you give them loads and loads of money for basically nothing. Again, there's no incentive. The real incentive is when you give people that are in the middle class or poor, you give those people more money, and they actually spend it. But anyway, and of course, it's not always that simple. There's a lot of different factors, of course. Like, for example, the last time there was a gigantic tax cut for middle-class people, and George W. Bush decided, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take that surplus that Bill Clinton left us, and we're going to give people $600. Well, that's not nearly enough, for one. But you know what they did with it? Since we have such high levels of debt and such low wages, people, instead of actually going out and spending it on things, they actually just paid down some of their debt, which is a smart thing to do. But if something like that were to work, it would have to be for a populace that isn't loaded down with things like student loan debt, credit card debt, et cetera, right? And didn't face rising bills and stagnant wages. So a stimulus like that, of course, didn't work. And a tax stimulus also has very little effect. And look, most people that have noticed a change in their taxes after the tax cut that are middle class, they notice only a very small change. The people that notice the most noticeable change or have the most noticeable change are people who are already super wealthy that don't do the levels of consumer spending that our economy relies on. But anyway, let me get back to the quote from Marco Rubio here. He said, working people have been beat up and ignored for far too long. Whether it's taxes, whether it's jobs sent to other countries, this tax reform is about them. Why don't you tell that to the workers at Carrier, who, despite getting massive tax cuts and special breaks from Governor of Indiana, still ended up offshoring hundreds of jobs to Mexico? And look, they're not the only one. There are a lot of these companies. All they did is that they took the tax cut money, they still offshored jobs, or they still decided not to hire people. And also, aside from giving out some paltry bonuses, basically did nothing but buy back their own stock. This is the very situation that we on the left, progressives, were warning you about, right? And we warned you not because, oh no, we're completely deluded, we believe in Marxism or bullshit, whatever, some crazy whatever reason that they believe that we think these things. No, it's because we look at the facts, right? We look at the fact that we've done this before. So, and when we did do this before, guess what? The same damn thing happened. All they did was basically buy back their own stocks and increase executive compensation. That is what's happened with this tax bill. That's what happens every single time we do a tax bill or we do something that's a repatriation of money that they hide overseas. They just bring it back and they put it right back in their pockets. So, look, Marco Rubio, spare me your crocodile tears for the workers who ended up getting shafted in the steel. 83% of the gains from this tax bill went to the very rich. So, but look, here's the thing. It's not about working people. He says, oh no, this was about trying to get fairness for the working people. No, it's never been about working people. How many more times does it have to be proven that if you favor the wealthy, that if you cut their taxes, that if you, don't, like, if you continue to give them subsidies, which we do, then, well, look, all it's going to do is just go back into their pockets. How many more times, right? It does not trickle down. It will never trickle down. It doesn't. It didn't trickle down when Reagan did it. It didn't trickle down when Bush did it. And it's not going to trickle down now that Trump did it. And see, we have this thing called historical evidence that proves this. But no. Republicans are like, this time it'll work. This time it'll work. Oh, look at what happened. I just gave all that money to the rich. And then, what do you know? They kept it. Who would have known? Who would have known? Well, everybody would have known. Everybody with a functional brain and everybody who hasn't been bought off by the donors. We all know. We all know. But of course, speaking of the donors, that's who Marco Rubio serves. He takes his marching orders from the donors and then he does what he is told. Exactly what he's told. That's why he voted for the tax cuts. So the question is, though, why is he railing against tax cuts now? Why is he saying this stuff? Well, look, it's because he's a politician. He's playing politics. See, it turns out that the tax cut is deeply unpopular with the voters. Gee, I wonder why. It has about a 27% approval rating. And now watch, of course, he voted for it because, again, he's servicing his donors that make sure that he gets reelected, that he can buy television ads, which helps him in his reelection campaign. But he's going to claim that he voted for it because of something like the child tax credit, which was his idea. But look, this is more bullshit, right? The reality is it's more Republican lies. This is somebody that just wants to get reelected so that he can vote for the next tax cut for the rich that they're going to pass and then claim, well, I only did it because there was one mildly helpful provision inside of it and not for my donors whatsoever. No. We know who Marco Rubio is. We know who he serves. So we're not fooled. Okay. I think that's fairly clear. All right. So let's move on. Let's go talk about the Dems. Nope, that's not it. So there's been a lot of talk about the incoming blue wave. Now, this is supposed to be a massive wave of popular support for Democratic candidates that are going to sweep into office and topple the Republicans. Now, there's a new poll out there that says, hey, whoa, not so fast. That actually might not happen. Now, according to a new Reuters Ipsos poll published earlier this week, there's a little bit less excitement for Democratic candidates than there was in 2016. Now, the survey found that only 46% of respondents said that they would vote for the Democratic candidate over the Republican in their congressional district. Now, that, of course, is problematic when you look at how far it's fallen. That number is actually down 9 points from 55%, who said that they would back a Democrat in a survey taken during the same time in 2016. And look, we know what happened in 2016. The Democrats all over got routed, got absolutely destroyed. Now, does that mean that Republicans are doing better? Slightly, I guess. 28% of respondents in the poll published on Monday said they would vote for the Republican. That's actually up 1 point from 2016. So, it's a slight increase. But look at the Democrats, losing 9 percentage points. That's terrible. So why the fall? Well, it turns out that millennials are just not interested in the Democratic Party. Now, Reuters notes that support for Democrats is particularly fading among white voters in the 18 to 34 age bracket. So it is white millennials that are driving this trend. Now, the poll found that while 47% of white millennials said that they would vote for the Democratic candidate in 2016, now only 39% said that they would back the Democrat this year. That number is equaled by those who said that they would support the GOP candidate. So I don't think there's that much of an increase among white millennials for the Republicans, but there's certainly a decrease in white millennial support for the Democrats. So let me get into why I believe this is happening. Now, look, I believe that some of the losses for the Democrats among this age group, or among this demographic, are people who are basically fed up with the Democratic Party for doing what it's always doing. Now, I'm guessing those people who wanted the Democrats to change are disappointed that the Democrats continue to do the same thing that they've been doing before. Now, the DCCC, for example, going in and trying to sabotage progressive primaries. Yeah, that would be a great incentive for somebody to not want to vote for that party. Or continuing to raise money from large donors, or to not put progressive priorities in front of the American people by not supporting them. Or, of course, you do have the Democrats who have suddenly now embraced populism, progressive policy, that are still taking lots and lots of money. The Intercept did a great story on those who, look, I gave some Democrats credit for not taking corporate PAC money, but you got to understand that there are other ways that they can still take corporate money. So, and they can still take checks from giant donors. So, yes, while that corporate PAC checks, of course, well, they're not taking those anymore, but there's definitely other ways that they can still be influenced by wealthy donors and corporations. So, look, man, there's still a problem with big money in the Democratic Party, even among those who have supposedly had an evolution on campaign funding and an evolution on Medicare for all, or an evolution on whatever. They're still politicians, and so you still have to take whatever they say with a grain of salt, with a gigantic grain of salt, and you still have to follow the money. So it's that alone, I think. A lot of people look at that and go, well, sure, you're saying the right things now, but where were you when it actually counted? Where were you when, for example, Bernie Sanders was bringing up Medicare for all? Where were you when Jill Stein was talking about a Green New Deal, right? Where were you when all these progressive politicians were talking about a guaranteed job for all, a job program, right? Or talking about a $15 minimum wage? Where were you? Well, you were on the other side. You were opposing this. And so was most of the Democratic establishment. So what makes you think that I'm going to throw in with the Democratic establishment now that you have a nice new progressive face? So, yeah, I totally get it. These are people that say, look, the Democratic Party hasn't learned anything, so why would they get my vote? When all they're doing is they're trying to pander to us. These are Dem exit people, right? Now, they never planned to vote for a Democrat because of all those reasons listed above, and the fact that the progressives were treated horribly in 2016. I have a lot of friends who are Dem exit, right? Who are like, no, I don't care. No matter what you do, I'm not going to vote for a Democrat. Fuck them. They fucked us over. Never, never again. I don't care who's running on the ticket. It could be Jesus himself. No. Or whatever the liberal, progressive, equivalent to Jesus would be. Look, let me understand. Or let me be clear, I should say, and make sure that you guys understand that I'm sympathetic to that view. I am sympathetic, but overall, I disagree with the solution. Just as I know that you guys who are Dem exit disagree with my solution, which is to take over the Democratic Party, to board it like you're, boarding a ship from a pirate ship and taking it the fuck over and making all the corporate Democrats walk the plank. I know you guys disagree with that, and that's fine. We can have a disagreement on the kind of option that we want to do. So, look, that could be a factor, right? Now, there could be another factor, is simply that millennials just don't plan to vote in the midterms. Now, that would be sad, because midterms and especially primaries are super important when it comes to change. So, now, there could be another factor as well. Part of that 9% could just be absolutely disheartened. I mean, it's been constant fighting against Republicans and Trump for almost 2 years, and what's happened? We've still gotten horrific policies passed, and there's been absolutely no forward momentum on a lot of different issues. Now, don't get me wrong. ACA is saying, okay, for the most part, sort of, but it's also being sabotaged, so I guess it's not too much of a big victory. And plus, it's the ACA, which is not even close to being a comprehensive system that is actually Medicare for all. So, not too much of a huge victory, but what do you expect? We don't have any avenues for victory, right? So, look, people are tired, I think, demoralized, and I think in a lot of ways disheartened. So maybe that has something to do with this. And I'm sure that there are plenty of other reasons out there that I have not even addressed. But the fact is that there is a sizable chunk of millennials that have decided, you know what, we're not going to vote for Democrats in the midterms. We're just not going to vote at all, at least for them. And some of them are even going to vote for Republicans. That's disastrous for the party. So what does the party have to do? Well, obviously they have to reach out to try to get these voters instead of acting like that they're owed a vote. Now, of that, there are people that will absolutely never vote for a Democrat, no matter how much they try to actually reach out. But nonetheless, I think there are people that they can try to get if they actually change their ways. Now, whether they're smart enough or savvy enough or principled enough to actually do that, well, as we've seen lately, the answer right now to those questions is, sadly, a resounding no. So, blue wave? I'm not so sure. And that is a wasted opportunity. Okay. All right. So before I go to the last story here, I want to recognize someone in the super chat that I didn't do so earlier. Peter S., which had a bunch of emojis. So, well, thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. 420. All right. Anyway, so thank you for using the super chat. That, of course, helps the show. So I appreciate that. Oh, here we go. Another super chat here from Kimberly. Let me read what that says. Give me a moment. I missed your shows of the past couple of days when you were in New York for work. I'm happy that I'm getting my TYT Nation fix and enjoying chat in the best chat on YouTube. Peace and love. Well, thank you. You guys, of course, make the chat this way. Yeah, I kick out a couple of trolls once in a while. But it's you guys that make the chat civil. And look, I don't care if you disagree with me on a lot of issues or almost every issue. I won't kick you out unless you start basically talking shit to people. So that's my rule. Just be civil to each other. You can disagree. You can have disagreements. You can have an argument, but not like it's got to be like a civil argument. As long as you're civil, you can disagree with me and everybody else in the chat all freaking day. I don't give a shit, because I'm open to different viewpoints and arguing with different viewpoints. But as soon as you cross the line into trolling, that's when I drop the ban hammer. That's when you're gone. So, but anyway, thank you, Kimberly. And I do hope that you find something work-related in New York. So I'll cross my fingers for you. All right. Let's go to the next story. I should say the last story here of the day. And we'll talk about education. Some edumacation. Okay. Newly released documents have revealed that a prominent university has allowed conservative donors to influence their hiring decisions in exchange for financial donations. Now, these documents that have been released show donor agreements between the university and the Charles Koch Foundation. Now, this is the George Mason University in Virginia. Now, these documents detail the deals in which the foundation would set up an endowed professorship at the university and would retain the right to select 2 out of 5 members on the hiring committee for these positions. Now, this is according to documents that are that have been released by the Associated Press. Now, the foundation also had the right to appoint members to advisory boards and to recommend faculty firings. So, I wonder what kind of professors that they would end up trying to fire. I'm sure that you could probably think of something. Now, the university, of course, has pushed back on this. This is Angel Cabrera, who addressed the documents in a letter to faculty last week, said, the deals, quote, fall short of the standards of academic independence I expect any gift to meet. Now, she also said in the past that the university does not accept gifts if donors seek to decide hirings and firings, according to the AP, and told the outlet back in 2016 that the Koch donations do not affect the university's academic independence. Well, okay, so at first they were like, well, no, the academic independence, absolutely not. Now it's, well, they fall short of the standards of academic independence. Oops. Basically, what's happened is that they had their hand caught in the cookie jar. Taking these gigantic endowments from Koch Industries, from the Koch brothers, or in their web of different organizations, and saying, okay, you can have control over who we hire and fire. Oh, well, that's fun. Now, here's the thing, right? So these documents seem to be a very clear indication that these so-called gifts and endowments were there only for one reason, to make sure that students basically get Koch-approved instructors. Now, why would they want to do that? I mean, it certainly couldn't be so they could indoctrinate students with pro-free market propaganda, would it? No. Only liberal professors do that. The projection here, of course, on the conservative side, when it comes to college and indoctrination, is just astounding. Now, how did the documents get released? Well, a former student had requested them through a Freedom of Information Act request. So this is somebody who had been to the college, had been a student, and was like, holy shit, man, this is conservative indoctrination. What the hell is going on here? You know what? I'm going to get some information. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to follow the money. Which, if you want to find out anything, if you want to find out why anybody is doing anything, well, you just have to go and follow the money. Now, the student, whose name is Samantha Parsons, works for an activist group called Uncoke My Campus, which is awesome. She told the Associated Press that the George Mason deals are similar to those the group had addressed at other universities, such as Florida State University back in 2008. Now, Florida State, in an original agreement that they had with the Koch brothers were there to push laissez-faire, free market ideology. Now, the college was had said, well, you know what, the standards in this agreement, I think they're a little too specific, so let's broaden them out. But don't worry, you'll still get to have some of your picks. Now, the AP reported Samantha to have said, quote, the faculty is supposed to have the independence to choose the best qualified candidate. But it's obvious, thanks to these deals, that they were not doing that. And they were doing that. What they were doing is they were choosing people that had a specific sort of ideology. Now, the foundation also said in a statement that the agreements, however, are old and inactive and that newer donation deals do not have the same provisions. The group also released documents revealing new details about the university's decision to rename its law school after Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. Now, the naming of the school had been connected to a $10 million donation from the Koch Foundation. So even though they're saying, oh no, these are old and inactive, well, there's also proof that thanks to this donation, we named it after Antonin Scalia, an incredibly right-wing judge. So I imagine conservatives, I wonder how they would feel if there was a college that decided to, after a donation from George Soros, to name a new facility the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Wing or building. No, I'm sure they wouldn't have any problem with that, right? Now, look, when you look at the deals like this, you begin to understand why federal and state funding has begun disappearing or had been disappearing from these universities over the last 20, 30 years. This isn't new. First, the donors, of course, pay off politicians to pull public funding from these colleges and universities. So with that extra funding gone, well, you have private foundations and corporations that step in to basically fill the gap when it comes to funding. So they come in and they say, oh, we've got enormous endowments. However, they happen to come with a little bit of a price. And of course, what they're trying to do is basically trying to use these colleges to propagandize for conservative free market ideology. Now, they do that because they think colleges are propagandizing for liberal causes. That, of course, is not true. Facts aren't inherently liberal or conservative. It's just that a certain group of people tends to believe in facts more than others. And that has nothing to do with the actual ideology. But anyway, now, what is acceptable in today's classroom, and this is from somebody who had economics classes, is modern laissez-faire capitalism. So, look, I never learned about any other forms of economics while I was in school. So, excuse me if I don't buy the idea that liberal ideology gets shoved down your throat. We're not sitting there reading books on socialism and Karl Marx. Yes, he might be, or Keynesian ideology, for example, or Keynesian economics and Marxism might be referenced in a textbook, but it's usually referenced in a negative light in a lot of these college economics textbooks. So just consider that. But here's the thing, right? Colleges are there to teach facts, and they're there to teach critical thinking and problem solving. And yes, there are a lot of people that go to college and end up becoming liberal. I happen to think that that's less to do with the teaching and more about their exposure to newer people, experiences, and ideas. That tends to open you up when you actually encounter people who think a little bit differently than you. And of course, not everybody becomes a liberal when you go into college as well. There are a lot of conservatives that are in college. Those are the ones that bring Ben Shapiro onto a campus, which then annoyingly gets protested. Don't protest Ben Shapiro. You know what you do? You let Ben Shapiro speak, and then you go do something else while he's talking to 5 people. That's it. That's it. You don't need to protest. You don't need to do any of that stuff. Just, go somewhere else. Do something else, or actually book somebody who's way more popular. And then, of course, you get into the, problems of some of these boards that will not allow certain people to speak if they're progressive. For example, Anna Gasparian. She got denied a college appearance because she's too liberal, apparently. So this whole bullshit about, colleges trying to silence conservative voices, ridiculous, right? But anyway, look, there's that lie about liberal propaganda being shoved down people's throats when it comes to college. In reality, it's conservatives and conservative groups that are projecting while they're doing essentially the same thing to try to promote more quote-unquote free market ideals. In reality, that means low taxes for them and less regulation on their business. That helps make them tons and tons of money. Again, it goes back to follow the money. You have to follow the money. This is not philanthropic, which, again, a lot of people will point to the Koch brothers and how they love to give money to, philanthropic causes. Oh, it's medicine and, all that stuff and art. Well, those are gigantic tax write-offs. But this is where they make sure that the next generation is more receptive to their free market ideology that ends up making them more money. Because in the end, that's all what this is about. This is all about making sure that the Koch brothers make more money. Which, of course, leads to the question of how much money is enough. And I don't think we'll ever answer that. Okay. All right. Man. So we made it just in time. That's awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please give us a like and subscribe. Thank you for the super chats, guys. I check to see if there are any more. Okay, there are not. If you want to support the channel and the show, you can either donate through the super chat or you can go and become a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation, and there will eventually be a new option to be able to become a sponsor on YouTube as well. So, all right. Thank you, guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow. You have an awesome afternoon.